I was only 3 weeks away from my wedding when my dead grandmother appeared in my dream. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. Her voice was soft, but urgent. "Don't marry him," she whispered. "Go to his mother's house tomorrow morning. You'll see the truth." I sat up in bed, breathing hard. I wanted to believe it was only a nightmare. I had no idea that dream was about to save my life. My name is Emma Carter. I was 30 years old, and I truly believed I had found the man I would spend forever with. The wedding dress was ready. The invitations had been mailed. The venue was booked. Everyone around me said I was lucky, but deep inside, something never felt right. I couldn't explain it. It was just a quiet feeling that refused to leave. My grandmother, Grace, had raised me after my parents passed away. She always told me the same thing. "Real love brings peace, Emma. If your heart keeps warning you, don't ignore it." Even after she died, I never forgot those words. Still, I almost did. I met my fiancé, Daniel Brooks, at the bank where I worked as an accountant. He was charming, funny, confident. He always knew the right thing to say. He talked about our future every day. Our own house. Our family. Our forever. When he proposed during a candlelit dinner, I didn't even hesitate. I smiled through happy tears. Yes. It felt like the easiest answer of my life. At least, that's what I thought. There were little things I pushed aside. Things I should have questioned. His mother, Linda, never treated me warmly. The first time I visited her, she barely asked about me. Instead, she asked strange questions. "So, how much do you make? Do you own your apartment? Any savings?" She smiled while asking, but it didn't feel friendly. It felt like she was collecting information. I told myself I was overthinking. I wanted everything to work. Then came that dream. My grandmother stood in front of me. She looked frightened. "Emma," she said, "Daniel isn't who he says he is." Her eyes filled with tears. "Go to his mother's house alone tomorrow. You need to know the truth." Then she disappeared. I woke up shaking. The room was silent. My heart was racing. I couldn't explain why, but I knew I had to listen. The next morning, I didn't tell Daniel where I was going. I drove straight to Linda's house. As I parked outside, I noticed a young blonde woman rushing out through the back door. She kept looking over her shoulder. She looked scared. Before I could speak to her, she disappeared down the street. A minute later, Linda opened the front door. "Oh, Emma." She looked surprised to see me. "Come in." I walked inside. Everything looked normal, until I noticed a folder lying on the coffee table. Linda stepped into the kitchen. The second she disappeared, I opened it. My hands froze. Inside wasn't wedding paperwork. It was a list. Women's names, addresses, property values, savings, notes about their finances. Every page looked carefully organized. It wasn't a family file. It looked like a list of victims. My stomach twisted. Linda came back. I closed the folder. Trying to stay calm, I asked, "The woman who just left, who is she?" Her smile disappeared. For several seconds, she said nothing. Then she quietly walked to a cabinet. She pulled out an old photo album. Without saying a word, she placed it in front of me. I opened it. The first few pages made my blood run cold. There was Daniel, standing beside the blonde woman, holding her hand, wearing a wedding suit. They weren't dating. They had been married. I couldn't breathe. I looked at Linda. Why didn't anyone tell me this? She lowered her eyes. The room felt smaller. I left without another word. That night, I confronted Daniel. I threw the photo album onto the table. He stared at it, then at me. "You were married." He stayed silent. Finally, he sighed. "It was years ago. It meant nothing. It was a mistake." I stared at him. "A mistake? You were married. You never told me." He rubbed his forehead. I didn't think it mattered anymore. Then I asked one more question. "I found the folder at your mother's house." Everything changed. His face became hard. The kind smile disappeared. His jaw tightened. "What folder?" "The one full of women's names." For the first time, I saw the real Daniel. His eyes filled with anger. He stepped closer. You shouldn't have been looking through my mother's things. His voice was cold, almost threatening. I took one step back. At that moment, I knew my grandmother had been right. I left immediately. The next day, I called my best friend, Sarah. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she looked at me. We need to find that blonde woman. Together, we started searching. After several days, we finally found her. Her name was Megan Foster. She agreed to meet us. The second she saw Daniel's picture, her face turned pale. I knew this day would come, she whispered. We sat together for hours. Then she told us everything. Daniel had promised her the perfect future. He convinced her to sell her house. He said they would invest the money together. She trusted him. She sold everything. She gave him the money. Then he disappeared. He vanished without a trace. She never saw him again. She wasn't his first victim, and she wasn't his last. The more we searched, the more women we found. Each story sounded almost the same. Daniel looked for women who had stable jobs, women who owned homes, women with savings. He made them fall in love. He earned their trust. Then he took everything. After that, he disappeared. Every single time. I couldn't believe I had almost become another name in that folder. We knew we needed stronger proof. So, I hired a private investigator. His name was Michael Reed. He worked quietly for weeks. Then one afternoon, he called me. You need to come now. His office was covered with papers, photos, fake IDs, passports, bank records. He looked at me seriously. Daniel Brooks isn't his real name. I felt dizzy. What? He has used several identities. He slid more documents across the desk. His business is fake. His records are fake. Almost everything he told you was a lie. I couldn't even speak. Then Michael said something even worse. His mother helped him. The room went silent. I thought Linda had only known part of the truth. I was wrong. She had been helping him choose women, helping him collect information, helping him hide the truth. But once the investigation closed in, she realized there was no escape. She agreed to testify. Not because she suddenly became honest, because she wanted to save herself. Little by little, more victims came forward. Each one carried years of pain. Each one finally had a voice. The police gathered every piece of evidence. Then one morning, Daniel was arrested. When I saw him in court, he looked nothing like the man I had fallen in love with. There were no warm smiles, no sweet promises, only fear. The lies were finally over. The investigators presented fake documents, false identities, financial records, victim statements. Everything pointed to the same truth. He had built his entire life on deception. The jury didn't take long. Daniel was found guilty. Fraud, criminal conspiracy, and several other serious crimes. As the judge announced the sentence, Daniel lowered his head. For the first time, he had nowhere left to run. But the biggest victory wasn't watching him go to prison. It was looking around that courtroom. The women he had tried to destroy were standing together. No longer victims. Survivors. Strong. United. He had stolen money. He had stolen trust. But he hadn't stolen their future. Months later, I had another dream. I found myself standing in a beautiful field filled with flowers. The wind moved gently through the grass. My grandmother was waiting for me. This time, she wasn't crying. She smiled. A peaceful smile. You are free now, she said. Then she reached out and gently touched my hand. When I opened my eyes, tears were running down my face. But they weren't tears of fear anymore. They were tears of relief. That dream reminded me of something I will carry for the rest of my life. Never ignore the quiet warning inside your heart. Sometimes, the voice trying to protect you is the very reason you get a second chance.